This video contains the instructions for installing and reattaching the VST EVR Assist Breakaway. Videos are for general reference only, and written installation, repair, and service instructions should be used to ensure all processes are followed. These videos do not address all potential problems or repairs that may need to be addressed, and care should be taken to consult a qualified contractor. These installation and preparation procedures must be followed to ensure a leak-proof installation and a leak-proof operation of this hanging hardware component. Number 1, turn off and tag the power to the dispenser. The dispenser must be de-energized prior to service. Number 2, barricade the work area to block vehicle access to the dispenser. Number 3, close the dispenser shear valve prior to performing any service work with the hanging hardware. Number 4, drain the liquid product from the hardware set into an approved container prior to replacing any hanging hardware component. Number 5, remove the hanging hardware from the dispenser prior to making replacement component assembly connections. VST recommends connecting the whip hose to the dispenser as the last connection during the hanging hardware assembly. If any of the hanging hardware components are involved in a drive-off or incur other customer abuse, each individual component must be functionally tested prior to customer dispensing activities. It's very important to use the proper lubricants. Improper lubricants may damage the component, which would void the warranty. For the O-rings, use only petroleum jelly or other suitable lubricant. And always lubricate the components prior to installation. Take note that leaks are typically caused by damaged O-rings. Do not use pipe dope or thread sealant anywhere in the hanging hardware assembly. Here are the tools and supplies you'll need. 1. A VST Breakaway assembly tool, part number VST BAT200. 2. Petroleum jelly. 3. A torque wrench with an open-end attachment. And 4. An open-end wrench. Let's begin with installing the VST EVR Assist Breakaway. Once you know the dispenser is secure, you can then begin to install the breakaway. Carefully unpack the breakaway from the shipping carton. Inspect the breakaway for any damage to threads, O-rings, or the exterior. Lightly lubricate all O-rings on the mating connections with petroleum jelly or other suitable lubricant. First, attach the breakaway on the mating connection of the whip hose and tighten it by hand. Next, attach the breakaway on the mating connection of the whip hose and tighten it by hand. Use the hex on the breakaway body closest to the connection to tighten. Tighten the connection to 50 foot-pounds of torque. Anytime you replace or repair a component, you must perform these 3 tests to make sure the component is functioning correctly. 1. A leak test. 2. A nozzle shutoff test. And 3. A resistance test. Now let's look at how to reattach the VST EVR Assist Breakaway. There are 2 methods for reattaching the VST EVR Assist Breakaway. Method 1 is by using the VST Breakaway Assembly Tool, and Method 2 is without the use of the VST Breakaway Assembly Tool. Let's start with Method 1, using the VST Breakaway Assembly Tool. Use the VST Breakaway Assembly Tool with the appropriate reassembly plates to reassemble the breakaway. The tool is used to provide appropriate leverage for the ease of reassembly of the breakaway. This reconnection process can be done without disassembling the hoses from the breakaway halves. Inspect both safety breakaway halves for damage that may have occurred during separation. Look for things like external damage to the product, damaged threads, damaged O-rings, missing O-rings, proper placement of O-rings, etc. If damage is detected, replace the damaged breakaway with a new one. After inspecting both breakaway halves, inspect the mating connections to make sure they are undamaged and clean. Lightly lubricate all O-rings on the mating connections with petroleum jelly or other suitable lubricant. Press the button on the VST breakaway assembly tool to spread the end clamps apart. This will allow for the two separated breakaway halves to fit between the top and bottom clamps. Something to be aware of is that as you start the reconnection process, a small amount of gasoline may leak out of the breakaway, so you may want to wrap a towel around the breakaway to minimize any spills. Slide the top clamp of the VST breakaway assembly tool behind the hex on the breakaway half that is still connected to the whip hose. Slide the separated bottom half of the breakaway with the curb hose and nozzle attached onto the bottom clamp of the VST breakaway assembly tool. Slowly squeeze the VST breakaway assembly tool trigger to bring the breakaway halves together. Here is a close-up look of how the two halves align. Notice for teaching purposes we're showing you this close-up with the two halves detached from the hoses. Remember, you'll be doing this alignment with the halves attached to the hoses. The two aligned breakaway halves need to be assembled concentrically, meaning properly aligned, until they snap into place. Carefully align the two breakaway halves. Align the two anti-rotation studs inside the breakaway half on the curb hose with the two slots on the other half of the breakaway attached to the whip hose. Continue squeezing the VST breakaway assembly tool trigger to finish the reassembly. Listen for a click to indicate that the two have been properly reattached. If the two breakaway halves have become cocked or misaligned or otherwise do not snap together easily, pull them apart and start the process over, starting with attaching the VST breakaway assembly tool to the breakaway half attached to the whip hose. After the two breakaway halves are properly snapped together, remove the VST breakaway assembly tool by pressing the button on the tool to release it. Then give the reassembled breakaway a strong pull to verify that it is properly connected. Now conduct the functional test to confirm the quality of your breakaway reattachment. Now the instructions for method 2, reassembling the VST assist breakaway without using the VST breakaway assembly tool. Be sure to drain the liquid product from the hanging hardware set into an approved container prior to replacing any hanging hardware component. Disconnect both the whip hose and the curb hose from the safety breakaway halves. Inspect both safety breakaway halves for damage that may have occurred during separation. Look for things like external damage to the product, damaged threads, damaged O-rings, missing O-rings, proper placement of O-rings, etc. If damage is detected, replace the damaged breakaway with a new one. After inspecting both breakaway halves, inspect the mating connections to make sure they are undamaged and clean. Lightly lubricate all O-rings on the mating connections with petroleum jelly or other suitable lubricant. The two aligned breakaway halves need to be assembled concentrically, meaning properly aligned, until they snap into place. If the two breakaway halves become cocked or misaligned or otherwise do not snap together easily, pull them apart and start the Method 2 process over again. Now that the breakaway halves are correctly reattached, connect the breakaway to the whip hose and the curb hose as described earlier in this video. Now conduct the functional test to confirm the quality of your breakaway reattachment. You have reached the end of this video.